Hi, I am Sophie and welcome back to the Edit by Engage Creative.
And I'm Amy. I feel like the elephant in the room we haven't discussed or acknowledged is our new setup.
Our new setup. So
where are we, Soph?
Where are we? Well, we used to record in my dining room and I moved house. I was crazy enough to move right after we came back from bridal market.
After we came back from market.
Yes. My poor husband, I think I was pushing the friendship a little bit, but it's okay. So we are in my new house, which is so exciting. Yeah, it is a little bit different, but we've got a different setup, but hopefully it doesn't make too much of a difference and people are interested in our content.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think it works really well. And I mean, I'm not going to complain about the comfy couch. We now get to
sit on the comfy couch
and chat.
More relaxed, more fluid conversations going to come from. I am always like to be relaxed. It's so funny because when we usually have our client calls, like from here up, I'm always like well presented and stuff. And then from like here down, I'm like, loving like in winter being in my slippers, or I always have to have socks on. I need to be warm when I'm working at my desk. So yeah, I'm finding this nice and comfy.
I think as much like, yes, we're going into winter here, but we are busier than ever.
Yeah.
We have a lot of things going on, both in EC and the sales agency. We're doing some campaigns at the moment, onboarding some new clients, prepping for October, which is wild to say, but I think we started prepping for October a little while back with like locations and all that kind of stuff. But now that June has hit, I feel like that is the first month we kind of mark in terms of starting that runway up until October bridal market.
It's very exciting. Well, on today's episode, I mean, it's kind of all about like the inquiry problem. What did you say before we kind of jumped into this episode?
Well, I think we talk a lot about marketing and how to do good marketing and speak to your persona and show up and what platforms, but we need to connect it up to what happens when someone actually goes from your marketing platform, so say Instagram, and actually submits an inquiry or sends an email. And, I think I've said this before, whether it's your branding, your marketing, your customer experience, there has to be consistency. That is how you are going to get conversions and bookings. And so talking about where there's maybe a disconnect and identifying that and what you can do to make sure that those inquiries that you were getting, that you've done all the hard work for from a marketing perspective, you're following through and getting that conversion.
I mean, the biggest thing that I am just so passionate about, because I feel like it applies to all businesses, is customer service. I think that you having templated answers, you are showing
that you can customize.
Yes, no, for sure. But you showing up on all of the platforms that these couples inquire with your business is consistent. You have the same tone of voice. You write back in a very timely manner. I think makes that next tier of the kind of inquiry going further. The wedding industry is obviously also so based on word of mouth. And I think that you providing that next level of service once the inquiry has landed in your inbox will help define you over, your competitors.
Especially because if you think about it, and I always like to tie this into the customer journey and think about what that person that's got engaged and has inquired what they're currently experiencing. So if you think about it, you got engaged, the whole whirlwind of that, and then you want to start planning your wedding. So what do you start to do? You start to reach out to not just several photographers, but you're also messaging venues and celebrants, and you're starting to look at, if you're a bride, dresses, because that's like, of course you want to look at that. And so then you're starting to get inquiries in and you're needing to digest all of that information.
Yep.
So if you're not getting back to people in a timely manner, you're missing the boat compared to everyone else that's doing that. The other thing, though, I would say is one of the reasons why we're seeing such a long lead time from the traditional 12 months, where it's anywhere from 6 to 18 months, is people are doing that initial inquiry, getting packages, figuring out pricing and calculating up costs and stuff, and getting like overwhelmed and putting it in the too hard basket. So as much as at the very start of it, having really good communication and a really good plan with how you're going to communicate with the couple and respond back to their inquiry.
And not dumping them with information, I think, is so important to say just on that. Like, you're not information dumping on them. You are giving them like really clear and, you know, fixed messaging on what are the next steps or what you can be as service to them when that inquiry lands in, because being clear and like consistent with how you respond is also going to help.
But that's really hard because, I mean, my default would be to want to give them a lot of information. So it's figuring out, and maybe this is where an outsider or like a different perspective comes in handy, because you as the business owner, or you as the one providing the service or the product, know your business and your service offering inside out. So maybe that's a good thing of like figuring out, do I need to have a third party or something set of eyes look over this?
Yeah.
And actually give me some feedback in terms of, because I think as much as you say you don't want to information overload them, and I do think that's important in the context of all the other information that they are getting from everyone else, we still have to find that balance where we're giving them the information enough that they are still showing interest, or getting them to a stage where they want to book in a consultation or do a property viewing if it's a wedding venue. So we've got to find that balance. But I think in all of that, I guess the common theme that I'm hearing is to regularly kind of review what you're doing, whether that be your marketing or your sales or your messaging, and like figuring out how it can be improved. The other thing that I have kind of seen with the information overload, or just like getting the information, is I feel from a few conversations that I've had is that couples or individuals want to be handheld. They want to be taken on the journey of making that decision. They don't want to, or they're becoming less of like, give me the information and leave me alone and I'll figure it out. They're actually wanting someone to guide them. And I don't know if that is a result of being too information overloaded, or maybe it's that like human connection element that's coming into play.
Yeah, and maybe it's just because people are starting to do their research via AI, and then like it leads them to the point where they actually want a human connection. Maybe it's also the Gen Zs coming through, that they do want someone to help guide them and kind of help navigate that next stage for them, because they've relied on, you know, social media to do their research tools, that they want that next level of service. I think that that's really important. You know, guiding them in a way that doesn't feel too pushy and too salesy, but helping navigate those next steps.
And I think it's conversations like these where you might not necessarily have like put the pieces together, but maybe us saying that is like an aha moment that makes you look back at something or go, oh, I've been meaning to change that, or I've been meaning to spend a bit of time, and you can kind of look into that a little bit more. And I think as well, going back to the discussion around the lead time, is what are your thoughts on follow-ups? Because I feel like a lot of people find them annoying or like get scared about them.
Look, I think that is a good question. I always like to leave a week before a follow-up, because I feel like it gives them enough time kind of to digest everything. You know, people are obviously super busy at the moment and like have their own kind of lives going on. I think couples obviously work full-time, and then they'll get to their personal emails or wedding planning on weekends or at nighttime. So there's a couple of different factors there. I think that it's always polite to acknowledge after a week, to say, hey, was there any other further questions? Just let me know. Maybe it's you can organize a phone call or a Zoom call or something that like helps them, you know, have that personal connection for the next step. And then look, if you don't get a response, I always love to do one or two more things. That's like, hey, have you seen our venue in autumn? Have you seen our venue in spring? And kind of maybe guide them on different options. Or perhaps it is jumping on a phone call. Whatever it is, I do think that there's still opportunities to follow up from when people have first inquired, not for it to just kind of go radio silence.
Well, I think that's the biggest takeaway with the follow-up conversation, because I do think, like, as a individual, if you're conscious of following up with someone and how many follow-ups you're doing, it comes across as annoying or salesy or something. But like exactly as you said, people have busy lives, people have jobs that they're doing. So I actually think it's only natural that they're going to forget about the inquiry or forget about you in particular. And it's your responsibility to actually show up to them again, whether that be in your marketing with your posting and the content that you're putting out, or, you know, landing in their inbox with a follow-up email. And I think the approach that you've suggested is really good. It doesn't have to be super salesy. It can be giving them another snippet of information about you, or like, again, let's use wedding venue as an example, about the wedding venue that might not
tweak
have
them, help tweak their, or spark some interest there, because we don't know what they're ideally looking for when they have first inquired. So giving them the options and giving it on a platter for them to make it as easy to digest as possible.
And then on top of that, I don't think it's a bad thing to even have some kind of setup or automation where you actually re-engage or follow up with them after like 3 or 4 months, because I do think that there are a lot of couples that are hitting that, like not getting engaged and then getting married like 18 months to 2 years later, that wouldn't have made a decision on your service or your product yet. So, okay, sure, they might have inquired and they might have ghosted, dropped off, but that doesn't mean that you can't do another follow-up or kind of go, hey, I'm still here. Is this something that you're thinking about? 4 to 6 months from their initial inquiry. I think that's perfectly acceptable. And I think that there are definitely tools in place where that can all be automated. So that's not on you to manually check and follow up. You can set up systems to do that. And like, why wouldn't you when you can set it up once and let it roll out? I think that kind of follow-up and that kind of customer service is really valuable these days. And I don't think a lot of people are doing it or have had the time to set it up. So that's your
point of difference.
That's your niche. That's your advantage that you can capitalize on.
So I guess closing out on all of this, what are kind of the next steps that people can do to kind of monitor that inquiry and look at kind of converting?
Well, I think kind of looking at what you're sending them, whether that be an email or a PDF or etc., and assessing it, and assessing and getting another opinion on if it's too detailed, if it's not detailed enough, is the information laid out in a way that is easy, like is digestible and doesn't open up a whole ton of questions. Not being shy about follow-ups. I think follow-ups are really important, as long as they are purposeful and they're not, every single one is like salesy, like driven by a sales agenda. I think it needs to be like a show up agenda.
Yeah, I think as well, like clear response time, clear response, making it as easy as possible. And also maybe it's adding a personal element to that email body that you put in, like, hey, you know, you've commented that you are going to be wearing a X designer. That's incredible. I love their collection at the moment. Or just like something that kind of adds a little bit more of a personal element to that inquiry, I feel like is lovely.
Well, that's really important, especially for those businesses that are like your name, like you as the person is the service, like a celebrant or a hair and makeup artist. That can be really powerful. And figuring out a way to be able to get them onto a call or a Zoom. I know that seems really scary these days for a lot of people to like have to show up and have a conversation, but making it feel like it is just a conversation. And we're just going to talk about things and we're going to hear about what you want for your day and how maybe that we fit in. And again, obviously you can have some kind of sales element added in, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a sale. Like, don't look at it as a sales call. Look at it as a opportunity to have a conversation. And again, that human connection is really important. So having all of those elements, I feel if you've got those structured in the right way, you should be seeing a really solid and consistent number of inquiries, conversion rate that goes into bookings.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you have to assess if it's a marketing issue and if it's a sales issue, and then diagnose from that further and pinpoint on that, because that's going to make the difference long term for how you grow your business if you're wanting to improve your conversion rate.
Well, I hope that was insightful.
I love to talk a little bit about sales and marketing.
Yeah.
I feel like
You're very good at diagnosing.
Well, I think that one works with the other. So I think that you have to like think about them hand in hand. You can't think about them as separate entities because they feed into each other. I guess that's why we have our marketing agency and our sales agency, because we sit on both sides and we see the benefit of working on both sides. So we just want to be able to communicate that with people to get them thinking about both sides and how they work together.
Yep. Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode.